The massive male lion approached Kofi, the Maasai warrior who was tied securely to a baobab tree on the Serengeti plains. Kofi had been bound and abandoned by ivory thieves, his body aching and hope nearly lost. The rough sisal rope bit deep into his arms and chest, anchoring him immovably against the ancient bark. The huge male lion stopped just feet away. Its amber eyes locked on him. The air thrummed with a dangerous silence. Kofi tried to control the frantic beat of his heart, searched the male lion's intimidating frame for any sign of recognition. That's when he saw it. The faint, jagged scar along its right shoulder, a wound he had treated and bound with medicinal leaves and clay many months before near his village's sacred grounds. It had been a lioness, not the male lion, who had brought her cub to Kofi for aid. A powerful story of trust you can watch in a previous video on our channel. But this was clearly her mate, the magnificent male lion who had guarded them from a distance. The terrifying predator was now his only hope. The male lion shifted its weight, its gaze moving from Kofi's face to the restricting knots around his torso. It lowered its immense head, the coarse mane brushing the dry grass. A low rumble vibrated in its chest. A sound Kofi knew wasn't aggression, but something like acknowledgement. The male lion cautiously extended its snout and nudged the rope, then retracted its head, almost as if assessing the complexity of the knots. Kofi tried to speak, a raw, dehydrated croak leaving his throat. "It's me, brother. It's Kofi." The male lion flicked its ear, a small sign that it was listening. It then began to work with a precision that belied its size. The male lion used its incisors to pull at the thicker strands of the sisal rope, careful to avoid Kofi's skin. Progress was painstakingly slow. The knots were tight and wet with morning dew. Kofi felt a surge of adrenaline mixed with profound anxiety. If the male lion accidentally bit him, the relief would be instantly replaced by a catastrophic wound. But the animal worked with almost surgical focus, its prior experience with the human's healing hands seemingly translating into a deep, unwavering trust in his mission. Suddenly, a cacophony of shrieking laughter cut through the quiet Serengeti. In the distance, between two scattered baobab trees, a menacing clan of hyenas appeared. Their low-slung, powerful bodies moved with a predatory intent. Drawn by the scent of a stationary human and a focused male lion. The male lion immediately stopped its rescue efforts. It raised its head, turning its focus from the knots to the approaching danger. The lead hyena of the clan of hyenas, a scarred female, trotted forward aggressively. The male lion was forced to make a desperate choice: continue trying to save Kofi or defend both of them from the growing threat. The hyenas were closing the distance fast. Would this act of rescue be abandoned before Kofi could even whisper a thank you? Keep watching to see a bond few could ever believe in the extraordinary defense this lion staged. The standoff between the solitary male lion and the aggressive clan of hyenas escalated quickly, forcing a desperate choice between rescue and survival for the majestic cat. The male lion positioned itself directly between Kofi and the advancing clan of hyenas. It unleashed a deafening territorial roar that shook the very ground. This was not the frustrated groan of a frustrated rescuer, but the clear, intimidating challenge of a protector. The clan of hyenas hesitated, momentarily intimidated by the sheer power and size of the male lion. But their hunger and the perceived weakness of the tied human quickly overcame their fear. They fanned out, their tactic clear, overwhelmed the male lion with numbers. The fight was a blur of dust and ferocity. The male lion, motivated by an unknown sense of duty, lunged. It swatted one of the attacking clan of hyenas midair, sending it tumbling. It used its massive bulk to keep the other clan of hyenas at bay. Its roar a continuous promise of violence. Kofi watched, his heart pounding in his ears. Every strike the male lion delivered. Every dodge and counter-launch was a life-saving action directed not only at the clan of hyenas, but ultimately toward his safety. Kofi felt a strange, profound guilt. He was watching his savior fight for its life, totally unable to offer any assistance. The male lion managed to drive the clan of hyenas back toward the thicket of acacia trees, but not without receiving a nasty superficial scratch on its flank. With the clan of hyenas temporarily repelled, but still visible, the male lion slowly returned to Kofi. It was exhausted, its heavy breathing fogging the humid air. It nudged Kofi's cheek gently, then turned its head and looked intensely at the ropes. It let out a soft, intentional growl, a sound that shifted in pitch as it looked back at Kofi and then down at the knots again, as if trying to will Kofi to understand what to do next. It was a plea for a solution, a nonverbal question. This lion was clearly trying to communicate its frustration and its need for a plan. But was Kofi too exhausted and tied up to see the answer? Leave a comment below if you believe this lion's incredible loyalty deserves to be shared. With the clan of hyenas temporarily driven off, a momentary fragile peace settled on the Serengeti. But the key to Kofi's freedom was still tightly bound to the thick bark of the baobab tree. Kofi, energized by the imminent danger, focused on the male lion's pleading gaze and the ropes. The male lion had successfully chewed through the outer layers, but the core was too thick and tight to penetrate without risking Kofi's body. Kofi desperately began scraping the back of his right hand, where the rope was slightly looser, against the rough bark of the baobab tree. He did this repeatedly to try to fray the sisal fibers down to a thinner, more manageable strand. The bark scraped his skin raw, but he ignored the pain. When he looked up, the male lion was watching him with an intense focus. Kofi strained his neck to nod toward the specific area of rope he'd frayed, then back at the male lion's mouth. It was a risky, almost impossible communication, but the intelligent eyes of the male lion seemed to register the instruction. The male lion lowered its head once more. It took a deep breath and with a quick, powerful movement, it bit down hard on the weakened section. Snap! The rope gave way. Kofi tumbled to the side, his body hitting the low golden grass of the Serengeti with a painful thud. He was free, but weak and disoriented. He immediately scrambled backwards, trying to create distance between himself and the huge animal, a reflex he couldn't control. But the danger wasn't over. Just as Kofi was struggling to get to his knees, a different sound reached them. The soft padding of multiple paws and the low collective scent of a larger pride. Around a distant cluster of baobab trees, a new group of lions and lionesses emerged, drawn by the recent fighting. They hadn't witnessed the rescue. They only saw a scrambling, vulnerable human on the ground. For them, Kofi was now just prey. The male lion, his protector, turned immediately toward the new arrivals. He let out a fierce warning roar, not of attack, but of assertion, signaling that this prey was his concern, confusing the new lions and momentarily halting their advance. Kofi is finally free, but a new, larger threat is looming. Don't go anywhere. The most shocking part of the story is about to unfold. The immediate panic of the close call faded as Kofi finally found his footing. Realizing that the most powerful form of gratitude was yet to come from his unlikely protector. Kofi, using the adrenaline surging through his veins, managed to crawl behind the baobab tree. The male lion held its ground, a silent sentinel, until the new lions and lionesses, sensing no easy conflict, slowly turned and disappeared back into the thicket. When the male lion finally turned back to Kofi, the danger was truly past. Kofi sat against the tree, his body aching, but his spirit soaring. He looked at the male lion, who was now standing quietly, its massive chest rising and falling rhythmically. There was no aggression, no demand, only a quiet, steady gaze. Kofi slowly extended his battered hand, and the male lion, with an intelligence that defied definition, lowered its head one last time, allowing Kofi to gently scratch the base of its scarred ear. It was a moment of profound wordless connection, a final emotional acknowledgement of a debt paid. The male lion gave a final soft snort, then turned with quiet dignity and walked away across the Serengeti, leaving Kofi safe and utterly speechless. This encounter wasn't just a lucky coincidence. It was a powerful, undeniable lesson that kindness offered without expectation is never truly forgotten. The male lion remembered the human who had saved its family and in turn risked everything to save him. It affirmed that empathy is a powerful survival tool capable of forging alliances that transcend the boundaries of species. Kofi would go on to report the ivory thieves who were later brought to justice by the tribal elders and local authorities. But the true reward was the validation of his ancestors' wisdom. the innate capacity for trust and connection in the animal kingdom. If this story taught you that even the most ferocious creatures can possess loyalty, share this video with someone who needs a dose of hope today. The bond between Kofi and the male lion continues to deepen. And next week, join me as we dive into an incredible story on my channel. A moment that will challenge everything you think you know about the Serengeti. Subscribe now so you don't miss the next chapter in this wild saga of empathy and survival.